Alright, what's up guys? My name is Zach, and today I am driving a 2003 Chevy Silverado 1500 HD. Up front is a 6.0 liter V8, and down below is a 4-speed automatic transmission. Now, I am super excited to be driving this Chevy Silverado for one single reason. This is a Quadrasteer truck, meaning the rear wheels turn. GM, for some reason in the early 2000s and late 90s, decided to give some of their heavy-duty trucks Quadrasteer. It's an incredibly interesting concept, and I'm excited to share it with you here today. But if you'd like to submit your own vehicle and have it reviewed here on the channel, you can head on over to my website, zackpradel.com/submit. It's a quick and easy submission form. It takes under a minute to fill out, and I come out to you. And if you'd like to see all my videos weeks or sometimes months in advance, you can head on over to my Patreon for only $5 a month. But let's get back to that 6.0 up front. Well, that was the heavier duty engine available in this era of Silverado. A lot of them had the 5.3, but you could upgrade to the 6 liter before you got into the diesels. I'll put horsepower and torque up on the screen. It's not a very notable engine, but in modern standards, we have the 5.3 and the 6.2. That's the same sort of relationship that the Silverado had with the 6 liter and 5.3. Like I said, paired to it is a 4-speed automatic transmission. It is a 4L80E 4-speed automatic, but definitely a lot heavier duty than the 4L60, which is good, especially in this application. Last but not least about the drivetrain, it is of course 4-wheel drive, but let's talk about that 4-wheel steering. So there is a button here on the dash, we'll talk about in a second, that will turn the 4-wheel steering on and off. We also have a button here for active dampening. Chevy basically knew that these trucks did not have a good turning radius, and so in order to help out, they added rear steering. It's a really, really cool concept, and it works phenomenally. In parking lots, driving this around, it is so nimble. I might as well be driving a Chevy S10 than a HD Silverado. Like, that's crazy. However, it's very expensive and very expensive to fix. And it breaks. Not all the time. It's not like this super incredibly unreliable system. And so they just didn't carry these on. There's a lot more engineering that goes into it and just made these trucks super, super complex. Dealers hate working on them, and so they killed it off. Funny enough, they kind of brought rear steering back with some of their EV trucks we'll touch on later. But driving a Quadrasteer is just so cool. With that stuff out of the way, let's talk about the interior. Well, in front of me, I have 7 gauges. Off to the left is my transmission temperature and tachometer. In the center is the speedometer. Off to the right is our oil pressure, fuel, coolant temperature, and battery voltage. On the steering wheel, we have source and program, our information buttons, seek, things like that. And off to the left, we have our 4-wheel drive settings for 2 high, 4 high, and 4 low, climate control vent, headlight switch, rear cargo light, and fog lights. And moving on to the door, we have our power mirrors, power windows, as well as our heated seats and memory seats here in the HD Silverado. Moving into the center, we get our radio, CD player, things like that. We do get dual zone climate. Very, very nice to see that here in the Silverado as well, especially for 2003. Climate vent, and then we have our amazing Quadrasteer button. So you can turn this system on and off if you would like. That little road with a wheel down below, that is your active dampening, and then someone has installed an airbag cutoff button off to the right. We do have 2 12-volt outlets, some cubby space in the middle, and we have cup holders down in the center middle, so we will do a big friggin' bottle test here in the Silverado, and it does in fact pass the big friggin' bottle test. So not only do all 4 wheels steer, you could also bring a decent amount of water with you to the job site. Then we have a center console in the seats. As I mentioned, the seats are memory and heated. Very, very comfortable. GM really knew what they were doing in this era when it came to comfortable seats. This has the leather. You could also get it with cloth, but I like it. There's a lot to love about them. So simple, so cushiony, so comfortable. I love them. However, speaking of seats, this is a 4-door with back seats. So let's go do a back seat review. All right, let's get into the back of the Quadrasteer truck. We do have a grab handle up here that will be useful. Close the door up. And you do get not a whole lot of leg room. We do get some earphone and volume options for our DVD player. I don't know If this was the factory DVD player, honestly, to me, this looks aftermarket. Maybe it's just it is GM's cheap whatever. Maybe it's not. It looks aftermarket to me. But we do have like audio stuff down here. We have cup holders that fold down. We do get a center console as well. 2 more cup holders in there. The nice leather carries on back here. Very, very cushy, very comfortable. Headroom is good too. 5'11", not a small guy. I fit back here. I even fit horizontally, which is really, really nice. Sorry about that. But overall, it's nice back here. It works. It's a 4-door, which was way better than like some of the half-door Silverados that they had of the era. So thumbs up for that, but nothing really too crazy. The Quadrasteer has no effect back here, so I'm not going to spend too much more time. Let's hop into the back. We'll take a quick look at the bed, and then we'll talk about the looks. All right, coming around the back of the Silverado Quadrasteer, we'll talk about these fender flares in a second, but the owner, Ed, was like, hey, let me get my motorcycles out of the back. And I said, you know what? I think the video would actually look cooler and the truck would look cooler if you left your vintage Kawasaki 90, I guess. I don't really know anything about motorcycles. And his Honda something or other in the back here. So I figured it would actually give you a good sense of scale of the bed of the truck instead of just pointing to an empty bed and saying, hey, look, you know, there it is. So that's what you could fit. If you've ever wondered if you could fit 2 vintage motorcycles in the back of a Quadrasteer Silverado 1500, worry no more. I have answered that question for you. You're welcome. So very, very cool. That is the rear back of the Silverado. We can, of course, open this up. He's got his ramps here, bring the bikes down, and there you go. Pretty standard tailgate. No LEDs, no coffee makers, no speakers found in there. There you go. Back of the Quadrasteer. Now we got to talk about the looks, and I love the look of the Silverado HD, and particularly the Quadrasteer trucks actually got a slightly different bed at the back. You could see that it has these sort of almost wide body fender flare looking things on the back. The back is a little bit wider, so if you see one in traffic, you're wondering if it's a Quadrasteer, look for those wider fenders, and that will be your tell. It is very, very cool to look at, and right off the bat, it just gave me such a special feeling when I got into this car. With all of that being said, let's get on to my final thoughts. What do I think finally driving a Quadrasteer GMT 800? Finally get to check this off my bucket list. Well, I love it. The turning radius is significantly shortened by the rear steering. It works very, very well. It accomplishes 100% of the task that it sets out to do. You're driving a big truck, but you genuinely don't feel it when the steering in the back actually operates. And it's great. It's so few and far between that I'll review a car and it has this really gimmicky feature and the feature actually turns out to be helpful, but that's what you get here in the Silverado HD with the Quadrasteer. That is super cool. And the main thing is that this really reminds me and brings me back to the era of GM where they were really doing pie in the sky, high technology ideas. Not only in the 1980s did they have the Cadillac Eldorado with the high technology engine, it was literally called the HT, that had basically very early cylinder deactivation, but also the Envoy XUV with its power roof that would fold into the back so you could turn your SUV into a truck or truck into an SUV. That was really cool technology. They had the Chevy SSR that was a convertible pickup truck with a power folding hardtop. A lot of technology. Throughout the 80s and 90s, they had lots of different screens and head-up displays. And I remember driving the late 80s Pontiac Grand Prix, and it had all of this like future Czech stuff. From the 80s through the early 2000s, really pre-financial crisis of '08, GM really had these high ideas, and they were trying futuristic technology here today. But what's most interesting is that literally besides rear steering, none of the technology that they had invested so much time and energy into ever stuck. We currently don't have any SUVs that transform into pickup trucks. We currently don't have grid-style vehicle systems check. Sure, we have some head-up displays. I guess that carried over, but not in the same way or the same style for sure. This Quadrasteer system is the only system that stuck around, and to be honest, it didn't actually stick around. They canceled it after a few years, and then now with the Hummer EV, they gave that rear steering, but it's a completely different system. It's not like they went back into their archives and pulled out, you know, the schematics of this truck to put into that. Those are two completely different systems. Same theory, but different systems. And so it's interesting to me just seeing that this stuff didn't really stick around. It was so incredibly ahead of its time, and yet here we are in the future finally, and it's nowhere to be seen. But when you try to predict the future, you're not going to get it right every time. And GM was at least trying. At least GM had these cool features and ideas. At least they were pushing the envelope when they could. And boy, did they push the envelope with this Quadrasteer Chevy Silverado. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Huge thank you to Ed for not only letting me borrow his Quadrasteer Silverado, but I've also filmed his diesel G-Wagon, his Accord SIR, tons of stuff. Ed has been absolutely wonderful here today in San Diego for letting me borrow some of his vehicles. He's the best, and I look forward to working with him again soon in the future. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to rate the video, comment on the video, and subscribe if you really liked it. Take care, guys.